question and one question and one question, and then we'll go back to the back again.
Us first.
Yes, you first.
How do you think the companies will compete with the likes of Apple in future years?
Personally, I don't think Microsoft is going to do that well because, like I said already, the iPhone has more sales than, that it didn't exist 5 years ago. It has more sales than all of Microsoft combined. And also, Apple is a lot more innovative than Microsoft is at the moment. Microsoft seems to have just started to focus on making money and not bringing new products to the market. Therefore, I don't think it's going to be very competitive against Apple.
I think IBM has likely a chance of surviving because they've already shown that they've been able to survive with their shift in different innovation techniques already.
I think also it can be kind of tricky to say because, since Steve Jobs is now gone, we haven't really seen what's going to happen to Apple yet. So, but if they keep on the track that they've been on with Steve Jobs, I think it'll be really interesting.
Haven't Microsoft launched a phone?
Yeah.
So that would be an example of some innovation.
Yeah, but like I said, the iPhone came out 5 years ago, so they're kind of lagging behind a little bit already, unless they manage to significantly improve on what the Apple has done already, then I don't know.
Good point.
Or can I say that I think the fact that they've lagged behind, although that's historically true, they often do lag behind Apple in product releases. Android was released well after iOS was, and that's got a higher market share worldwide and in America. And also, the Apple's share prices dropped 35% since September. And also, there's rumors that the guy who made the Xbox is going to go to become the CEO of Microsoft. And in that case, it's kind of an innovative direction that it might take. And also on that point, I think you said since 2000, there have been no real innovations, no market successes from Microsoft, and Xbox was released in 2001, and that was a huge success. So I think that was quite an omission there. But
Okay, most of that was quotes from articles, so obviously that's their opinion of the whole market in general, but Xbox was pretty good.
Thank you. Thank you for that information. Middle group?
Do you think that Microsoft would be in a better position if they were to change managers from Steve? Sorry, would Microsoft be in a better position if Steve was replaced?
I think if they replaced him with somebody who had a different management technique, then yes, I think that they could definitely get themselves back on the market. But if they replaced him with just somebody with the same kind of management strategies, especially with this stack ranking technique that they've been using, they're not going to go anywhere, and they're kind of just driving themselves into the ground with it. So if they replace him with somebody who has a more creative thinking, and back to what Bill Gates and Paul Allen called a product guy versus a business guy, then they could definitely see their company start coming back up to life.
Yeah, personally, I think if they replace their management structure with a more garden management structure, with that kind of metaphor, then they'd do a lot better because they would fuel their innovation. Whereas at the moment they seem to be following kind of a machine type management structure, which doesn't really help them to innovate and make new creative products.
Any information on that point?
I think Apple, Steve Jobs was a notorious machine operator. He was an absolute perfectionist, and he was basically famous for his management style being very, very strict. And so I think that obviously worked in his case. So I don't think it's necessarily the case that they have to have a garden structure to make it work, because Apple's managed to do it without using that.
There would seem to be a tension there, wouldn't there?
Yeah.
Between what is known about him and his management style and his attention to detail and actually the innovation that was occurring within Apple.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any more information on how that was managed? You know, how did they manage to create?
Well, I know that Steve Jobs was sacked from Apple at one point,
Yes.
so I think that this indicates what sort of personality that he had. And they eventually brought him back, but he was sacked. So.
But how did they manage to continue to grow and succeed and innovate when you've got a...
It was very top down. So they had Johnny Ive and Steve Jobs at the top. So Steve Jobs would come up with the ideas, and Johnny Ive would design them. So basically, they would tell people pretty much exactly what they had to come up with and the design they had to conform to, and then there would be very strict targets for what they had to reach in terms of those limits. So it really wasn't a very guidance structure there.
No.
But they managed to cultivate innovation anyway, because they had product people at the top. Although Steve Jobs was always known as someone who was very business focused rather than necessarily being an innovator in terms of products. He managed in such a way that he had a tight rein on the products that were released with a business mindset. So it's I think it's a different case because he was quite a special person. So it might not be that Microsoft would use the same strategy to have the same success.
What sort of techniques and tools would you normally associate with an innovative and creative organisation that may not be the case at Apple, but you know, is more normally and naturally associated with innovation and creativity?
I don't know, I wanted to go back to what Michael said.
Oh, right, okay.
About, like, the most important thing was that Apple, they had creative guys at the top, whereas, like, Steve Ballmer doesn't seem to be that kind of guy, therefore they need to make the employees come up with the ideas. So whereas Apple, they had the ideas coming from the top, and then they were telling people to do them, whereas if the guys at the top don't have the ideas, then you need to be able to fuel the innovation of the people that are under, and therefore I think that a guidance structure would work better there, because the ideas are coming from the top.
Good point. So what sort of practices do you associate with this garden structure? What sort of ways do we normally create innovation or create a context for innovation and creativity?
Well, having less structure and being less bureaucratic, and giving more freedom to workers to innovate more.
Lovely. Can anyone else help out there? What kind of context or culture?
Less of a hierarchy, so you don't always have to report to your superior who reports to someone else, whereas everyone seems to be more like relaxed.
Lovely. You sort of bring into mind this performance appraisal process that seems to have come in for a lot of criticism. What was the name of that again?
Stack ranking.
Stack ranking. So that's an example of a kind of managerial or human resource practice that seems at odds with what they were trying to achieve. What would be one that was not at odds, that was actually more conducive to that sort of behaviour, creative behaviour?
I think, well, when I was researching all of the stack ranking, it said, what if you got a group of employees that one of them was Steve Jobs, one of them was like all of the head bosses of all of the really big companies now. You had to rank a certain percentage as high, medium, low, and poor. So you could be ranking Steve Jobs as poor when in fact he's really not. So it was, I think, maybe if you do it as not a certain percentage of the workforce has to be like ranked as a certain thing, if you just individually appraise everyone and don't have to have a certain share of the workforce in a certain category.
Lovely. I think we'll return to that later on. Thank you, that kind of point. Group over there.
What measures do you feel Microsoft should take to regain their competitiveness in the market?
I think they need, like we've said a bunch, like the whole stack ranking, it's just not working because the employees are feeling so pitted against each other because one of the articles we read said that, you know, you walk in on the first day knowing that, you know, if there's 7 people working together, you know, 2 are going to be high ranking, you know, 3 are going to be in the middle, and like 1 or 2 are going to be ranked poor. So it just makes you not